ॐ दक्षिणास्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताः स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणम् सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशव वामन कृष्ण पाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरु सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Now, Krishna is talking to Arjuna and telling him that, Arjuna, there is no need for you to really worry about anything in the form of shoka. In the sense, none of these people that you are grieving over require to be grieved over. And what Krishna says is, if you really look at all of us, including you, me, all of us, we are not this body, mind, sense complex which you think you are, but we are actually the Atma, or that awareness, consciousness, which is actually the one which is what we really are. And this body, mind, sense complex, Krishna calls it Anatma. And when you say Anatma, what is the meaning of that? It is said that Krishna tells Arjuna, and with that to all of us, he says that, Arjuna, you understand one thing, that when you say I, all of us are a loosely combined mixture of the body, mind, sense complex and the Atma. Atma is what? The awareness, consciousness. And what Krishna says is that if you really look at it, you are not the body, mind, sense complex Anatma at all. You are that consciousness Swarupam Atma only. It is very difficult for us to understand it. And initially, it is very difficult for us to change this kind of, the perspective in which we are looking at ourselves. We are used to looking at ourselves as the body, mind, sense complex. And suddenly, when Shruti says that you are not that body which is seen by you, which is available solidly for your experience. But you are that Atma, that consciousness, which is really not visible, not perceivable by you by any means. Now, how do I know that this Atma is there? How do you know? How do I know that this Atma is something which I am, is there at all or no? So here we have to understand that we have to have Shraddha in the Shastra. When I mean Shastra, Shastra means actually Vedanta Shastra, Vedas. Shruti is also called as Shastra. So Shastra, Shruti, Vedanta, they are the only pramana. Now, many rationalists, they ask a question. What I don't see, what I don't perceive, how can I say that it is there? No, there are so many things that are not available for perception, but those which are really there. We'll take the example of this very space itself. Space itself is not seen. It is not available for my perception, but I know that it is there because it accommodates for something. Similarly, if I have to say that, I am this Atma, and if somebody asks me, how do you know that you are that Atma? Now, Atma is what? The awareness consciousness, that which is aware of an object of perception. Now, there are objects of perception in the entire universe, the objects of the universe, and my body, mind, sense complex, intellect also are the objects of my perception. Therefore, Shastra says, you are not what you observe. You are not the objects of your observation, but you are the very observer of those. I observe, I know that this body is there. I am the observer and the body is the object of my observation. My sense organs, that they are functioning, that I am seeing, I am hearing, all this again shows that I'm aware of the sense organs. So the sense organs are the objects of my perception. Similarly, the mind with all its confusion, with all its emotions, is available to me as an object of perception. Similarly, my ignorance, my knowledge, my knowing, my not knowing, everything is available to me as an object of my observation, isn't it? If somebody asks me about something, I very openly say, I know, or I say, I don't know. What is it that knows that the intellect knows? What is it that knows that the intellect I does not know something? That means there is somebody, there is something, an observer, a knower who is aware of the ignorance and the knowledge of this intellect also. Therefore, Krishna says that you are not any of these. All these are called as anatmas, and you are the very subject of the perception. You are the very perceiver, and this perceiver is nothing but that consciousness Atma. And now Krishna is giving the differences between Atma and Anatma. Why? Now, if I want to see who I am in this mixture, now I am this mixture of Anatma and Atma. And if I have to know which one I am, then I should know the nature of Atma, the nature of Anatma. And with this nature, I have to understand that I am what? I am not the Anatma, but I am the Atma. This is what I have to understand, I have to know. And this is what is called as the Atma, Anatma Viveka. This is also called as the Jnanam, Atma Jnanam, Anatma Jnanam. Also we have to know that I'm not the Anatma, but the Atma. And Krishna started giving various contrasting features of both Atma and Anatma. Now, we have to understand that Shastra or our scriptures are the only pramana. Pramana means what? Means of knowledge. Our Shastra is the only means of knowledge which can talk about the observer consciousness. Because I am the very observer, I can talk about anything which is an object of my observation or my perception, but there is nothing that can talk about me, the observer consciousness. And what is it that gives me the idea or the knowledge of myself is nothing but this Shastra Pramana. And I have to have the trust. the faith, and also the patience to go over the Shastra again and again till, my paradigm shift happens, till I'm able to see what I'm supposed to see. Because Shastra says the way you look at yourself now is wrong. Your idea of yourself is wrong. But ultimately, what you are is nothing but this awareness, consciousness, and I will tell you your Swarupam. I will tell you what you really are. I think Shastra or Vedanta Pramana is the only one which glorifies me, the observer. Everything else just puts me down, isn't it? Anything matter, our people around us, or sometimes, even some religions, they put us down. We are sinners. No, it is only, our scriptures, our Sanatana Dharma, our Shastra, which says that you are the highest, you are the most glorious, you are that Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, and you are the one in whom everything is appearing and everything is existing. So I am that glorious Atma, in which case, what are my features? What is my Swarupam? If I know my Swarupam, then I can claim that I am that Atma. So what are my Swarupam? What is my inherent nature? I told you last time, inherent nature is something which is permanently there all the time, which doesn't come and go, which doesn't wax and wane. That is the real nature of a thing. And I gave you certain examples also. And in the 12th verse, Krishna said that Natvevaham Jatunasam. We have already seen that. I'm just giving a very brief summary of what we have seen in the last 4 verses. He says that you, I, we, the Atma Swarupam is something which is eternal. The bodies come and go, but the awareness consciousness does not come and go. And what is the proof of this? The proof of this, he says in the 13th verse, then you were the same knower when you were a child, you were the same knower when you were a youth, you were the same knower when, you are now, in the, you are aging, Jara, in the older age. And even in the ripe old age, you are the same knower. You know that the body is going through all these changes. I was a child, I was a youth. Who says that? That knower of all these stages of one's life is that consciousness which does not change. And contrary to this, Krishna says that once this body mind sense complex comes in contact with the world of objects, then all its experiences, all those experiences which are experienced by the body mind sense complex come and go. In the 14th verse, he said, Matra Sparshastu Kaunteya, when the sense organs come in contact with the sense objects of the Jagat, there are experiences. And what are these experiences? These experiences may be of that of polar opposite in nature. They come, they go, and they are not permanent. But what is permanent? That consciousness which is aware, which is experiencing the alternating experiences, is that Atma you. So Atma is Nityam, Anatma is Anitya. And also he said that Atma is something which is existent in all the periods of time. And all the body, mind, sense complex with its experiences, this entire thing is nothing but that which comes and go. And he says, those people who know this, in the 15th verse he said, those who know this, they do not get disturbed by the changing circumstances, the changing situations in the Jagat outside. And in the last class, we ended with the 16th verse, where Nasato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate sataha, ubhayorapi drishtontaha tvanayos tattvadarshibhihi. Krishna says here that which has no independent existence of its own, okay, na asataha vidyate bhavaha, that means that which is an object of your perception, the drishyam or the Anatma, Jagat and body, mind, sense complex, they do not have an independent existence of their own, and they depend upon you, the Atma, for their existence. At the same time, na abhavo vidyate sataha. For the Sat, that means for that which is existence, there is no abhava. It is independently capable of existing by itself. Therefore, Anatma, body, mind, sense complex is asat or mithya because it does not have an independent existence of its own. Its own means their own. The Anatma is a combination of so many things. Anatma doesn't have an independent existence of its own, whereas you, the Atma, has independent. You have the independent existence. You don't depend upon anything else or anybody else for being, whereas the Anatma requires you for its existence, for its being. And a Tattvadarshi, Tattvadarshi means what? The one who understands this Atma Anatma Viveka is capable of understanding, seeing this difference. Now, three things have been already told, that Atma is Nitya, Anatma is Anitya, Anatma is Agamapayi, but Atma is that which is permanent. And also Atma has an independent existence of its own, whereas Anatma does not have an independent existence of its own. So out of these, who am I? I am the Atma, or the awareness, consciousness. And that's what Krishna says. And I can't believe it now. What? I'm Nitya. I'm there all the time. And is it that, my body does not have its own existence? He'll go on talking about it later. Still, we have a lot of Bhagavad Gita, portions to be completed. And we will understand that Krishna is going to talk about all these things further. Now, in the 17th verse, he further talks about the differences between Atma and Anatma, Atma Anatma Viveka, so that I can claim my true nature of being Atma if I know what Atma is and what Anatma is. So in the next verse, that is the 17th verse, what does Krishna say? Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tatam vinashamavyyasyasya na kaschit kartumarhati. Already the eternal nature of Atma has been talked about by Krishna in the previous verses. In the first line, Krishna is only going to repeat that this Atma is not Vinashi. Vinashi means what? That which can get destroyed, that which can get lost. Now, what do you mean by destruction? Now, there are a few ways in which anything can get destroyed. First, just being there without doing anything, just by the effect of time, kala, a thing can get destroyed, right? Now, let us imagine a fruit. A fruit I keep on my table, dining table. I don't touch it. I don't do anything about it for the next 20 days. Now, what happens? Slowly, the apple starts, or the fruit starts rotting. And then over a period of time, it gets destroyed or rots. It ceases to exist anymore. What has happened here? The time itself has destroyed, which is a natural state of destruction depending on the time, based on time. Next one, supposing there is some support over which I keep an object. I keep a light or a lamp or a glass on a table, and I remove the support, the glass falls and it gets destroyed. Fine. So I remove the support, then it gets destroyed. That is second one. Third one, whatever is necessary for it to survive, say nutrition, food. I don't give nutrition to this body for a period of a few months. Automatically, the body dies of lack of nutrition. And fourthly, there is something else which can destroy it in the form of elements. Like wind can dry up something and kill it by drying. Heat can kill, right? Heat can destroy something. That is possible. Then Water can destroy something. That is also possible. Earth can destroy something. So we have this 4 ways where things can get destroyed, vinashi, which get destroyed. But Atma is what? Krishna says, avinashi tu tadvidhi. May you understand that Atma to be avinashi. That means that which cannot be destroyed, that which is indestructible. Why is it indestructible? Because it does not come under the effect of any of these 4 things, which will be explained again in the future verses. So, Atma is something which is not going to be affected by time, because we've already seen that it is eternal. It does not come under the influence of time. We have already seen that. We have seen that it has independent existence of its own. It is Sat. Therefore, it does not require any support from anything else. It does not require any nurturing or nutrition from anything else. And then nothing else can destroy it. Why nothing else can destroy it, like water or fire or earth? Krishna himself is going to tell in the next 2-3 verses later. Krishna himself is going to talk about it. So this Atma, you, every time we have to understand that when Krishna says Atma, I have to understand it as I, me. The real me is Atma. And yes, right now it is very difficult for me to accept that I am the Atma and not the body. But then by the end of Bhagavad Gita, we'll all be able to claim with a lot of confidence that I am not the Anatma body, mind, sense complex. I am this observer Atma. And we have to have this Shraddha and we have to have this patience to be with it, to be with the teaching of Krishna. And what Krishna is giving is Shastra Pramana. He is not telling anything of his own. He is giving that which is exactly given in the Upanishads and in the Shastra. That's what he is talking about. Now, he says, Avinashi tu tadvidhi. Tad Atmanam. Atmanam. Vidhi Avinashi. Yena sarvamidam tatam. The second, he brings in this verse another feature of Atma. He says, this entire Anatma is pervaded by you, the Atma. Now, sarvamidam tatam. Tatam means what? Pervaded. Now, we have to understand what is the meaning of pervasion. When something is very gross, it is limited in space, it is limited in place, right? Because it cannot occupy everything. Like even, the largest matter you take, like earth, or like you take the entire universe of objects, but then it cannot occupy entirely everything. There is some space left further here. So, but there is one thing which is so subtle that it pervades everything. See, the pervasion of something requires that thing to be more subtle, more and more subtle. Now, earth cannot pervade everything. Imagine, but water can pervade a larger area of space, not earth. It can pervade larger areas of space and larger areas of earth also. Similarly, if you take fire, very large areas. Go to the wind, I'm going backwards, 5 elements. That is, that will also come later. That is Akasha, space, Vayu, air, Agni, fire, Apaha, that is water, and Prithvi, that is earth. If you take all these 5 elements, the least pervasive is earth. Then little more pervasive than earth. Pervasive means what? It can occupy a larger pervasion. It has larger occupation in terms of space and place. Water has higher, fire is still higher. Air, you understand air, how it is. Wherever there is space here, in a particular atmosphere, wherever there is a possibility of air to go. What about space? Space is still more pervasive. Why? Because space is very, very subtle and it can pervade almost everything. And it is said that this Atman is even more pervasive than space, because Atman is the subtlest. There is no matter at all here. Anything which has even a slightest amount of matter will have limited pervasion. Now, space, we say, space also is very, very, very subtle matter. Space is also matter. It is not, spirit. Whereas Atma is what? Atma is not at all matter. There is not an iota of matter in it. It is the subtlest and the spirit, or what is called as consciousness, which is all pervading. So that which pervades, that which occupies in the sense that which is available everywhere, it is called as Sarvagatam. And he says, Krishna says, Yena Atmana Sarvamidam Tatam. Sarvamidam means what? All Anatma, entire Anatma is pervaded by this subtlest Atma. So what is the meaning of it? You, the body, mind, sense complex is gross. Body is the grossest. Sense organs are little, subtler. Mind is still subtler. Buddhi is still subtler. Whereas Atma is the subtlest, and it does not come under the Anatma. And Atma is therefore, because of its subtlety, it is something which is spread everywhere, which pervades everything, which is in and through everything. Therefore, Atma pervades, which is in and through all Anatma. That's why in one of the Upanishads, it is said, it is said that Anoraniyam Mahato Mahiyan, it is said. It is subtler than an atom, and it is, even bigger than the biggest you can imagine in this universe. That means what? Wherever there is anything called is, this Atma is pervading everywhere. So it is all pervading Atma. Now I get a doubt here, isn't it? How can I be that all pervading Atma? I am not even pervading this whole room. I'm just pervading in this chair that I'm sitting. How can I be that all pervading Atma? Now I'm looking at myself from the point of view of the body. Therefore, I'm feeling that. Just see, just let us, take this Sarvagatatvam. It's called also Sarvagatatvam. See, now in our own, Anatma, let's go through this. This body does not occupy more than maybe a few square, inches where I'm sitting, right? But just see what happens to your sense organs. Your eyes can go much further than where your body is. Your hearing, your ears can pick up something which is much farther away from wherever I am sitting. Correct? What about the mind? It is much more pervasive. Here, when I'm sitting here with this non-pervasive, idle and this kind of, body here, my mind can go all over the place and come back. So it is all the more pervasive. Wherever it knows, wherever it wants, it can pervade and come back. My buddhi, my intellect is much more pervasive. Why? Because it can understand the most subtle things that are being talked about. It can understand. It can digest, it can assimilate what is going on. So if I look at it, in me, this Anatma itself, there are layers and layers of pervasiveness. And if I am the observer, and if this observed Anatma itself has so much of pervasiveness in, in grades, then what about me, this observer Atma? And Shastras say that you, this observer, Atma, is one and the only. It will come later. And it is one Atma in all the Anatmas. And therefore, you, the Atma, is all pervasive, present everywhere, available everywhere. Wherever you go, wherever you see, wherever your mind goes, wherever your intellect goes, the Atma is there. That is why it is called Tena Sarvamidam Tatam. Tatam, pervaded by this Atma. Idam means what? This everything. And Vinasham avyayasya asya na kaschit kartumarhasi. And hey Arjuna, this Avinashi Atma, Sarvagata, all pervading Atma, all of us are, including your Swajanas, your Bhishma, Drona, who are disturbing you so much. And then you are worried and you feel that you are going to destroy them. Can you destroy them really? What you are going to destroy probably is their body, not even their Sukshma Sharira. That will come again when we come to this Vasansi Jirnani. We'll talk about the Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira. And those who have gone through Tattva Bodha and Atma Bodha, already you have got an idea as to what is a Stula Sharira, what is Sukshma Sharira, what is Karana Sharira. So what is it that is destructible? That which is destructible is only the Stula Sharira body. Even the mind and sense complexes are not destructible by anything. Then, hey Arjuna, what are you talking about destroying the Atma Swarupa? All these people who are nothing but Atma Swarupas. How can you say that you are going to destroy them and grieve for them? And ultimately, hey Arjuna, those bodies which you think you are going to destroy, they are anyway of the nature of getting destroyed. That he says in the next verse, 18th verse. Antavanta ime dehaha nityasyokta sharirinaha anashino prameyasya tasmadyudhyasva bharata. Hey Bharata, hey Arjuna, Bharata Vamsha Kula Udbhava Arjuna, Antavanta ime dehaha. These bodies are anyway antavantas. Antavantas means they are going to get destroyed one day. They are going to, the bodies are going to, die one day. That is why Yama is called as Antaka. What is the meaning of Antaka? The one who really ultimately takes the body away. So, Antavanta ime dehaha. All the bodies, including your body, and Krishna says, yes, including my body also. Ultimately, Krishna's body also, though Krishna is Bhagavan and Avatara, his body also had a date of birth, and he also had a date of, we don't call it death there because he's Bhagavan, we say Svargarohana. His body also had to disappear one day. So, any body, antavanta ime dehaha, but the shariri, or the one who is indwelling in this body, the Atma, nityasya uktaha sharirinaha. That which is obtained in the body, that which is available in the body as the shariri or as this consciousness is nitya, or that which is eternal, which you have already seen. That is, this nityatvam is being repeated. It is only for us to understand Krishna is stressing on this nityatvam or eternity or imperishability of Atma in contrast to the perishability of the Deha. So this Deha is Antavanta. It is perishable. Whereas that Shariri or that Atma, the indweller of this body, is actually not Antavanta, but it is Nitya. And Anashinaha, this Atma which is Anashinaha, that which cannot be destroyed. And he brings another feature of Atma here, Aprameyasya, Aprameya. You have heard this name. Many of our children have this name, Aprameya. What is the meaning of Aprameya? Aprameya means that which is not an object of one's perception. See, for anything to be an object of perception, it has to have grossness. The subtler and subtler and subtler a thing becomes, it ceases to be an object of perception. You know, we have observed that. See, I mean, earth is available for perception, water is available, fire is available for perception. Whereas wind, I cannot see that, I can only feel it. Space, I cannot see it, I cannot feel it, but I can infer the space only because it gives accommodation. It accommodates things. So there must be some space which is accommodating everything. So that means there is some thing which becomes aprameya, means not an object of perception at any time, any place. And if that is, it is you, the Atma. Why? Because you, the Atma, are the subtlest, and you are the observer. You are the knower, and you, the observer consciousness Atma, can never become an object of your own perception. Let us say the eyes, okay? Eyes can see everything, but can my eyes see themselves? No, they can't see themselves. They can only see them in the mirror, in the reflection. I can see everybody's face. I can't see my own face. Why? Because, I am the observer. The observer can never see or perceive the observed. And who am I? The Atma. I am the observer, consciousness. So I, the Atma, cannot be the observed. It is logic, isn't it? The observer, the seer, cannot be the seen. The one who is knowing, cannot be the known, right? Now, I'll give you another example. There is a photograph. This example is given many times. There is a photograph, and we know that the photograph is the result of a camera behind it. And there is a person behind the camera who has taken the photograph. But you don't see the camera in the photograph. But at the same time, do you ask what is the proof that there is a photo? The proof that the photo is there is because the camera is there. The proof that I'm seeing a photo is because somebody has clicked this photo in the camera. Correct? Similarly, if it is said that this entire universe, Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Drishyam, Dakshinamurti Stotram says, this entire universe is like a photograph, and I, the observer, is not a part of that observed world. But at the same time, I am that unseen, unseeable, observer, like the camera. Another example, I can call any phone number in the world from my telephone, but can I call my own phone number and talk to myself? I cannot do that, isn't it? It's because why? I'm the speaker. I can speak to somebody. I can't speak to myself in my own phone. Similarly, Atma is the perceiver. Atma is the perceiver consciousness, knowing consciousness, knower consciousness. And everything is an object of Atma's perception or my perception. And therefore, I am not an object of my own perception. My body is an object of my perception. Therefore, I'm not the body. Fine. I'm not the, my mind and sense organs and intellect are the organs of my perception, but I'm not, that. Then who am I? I'm the aprameya. Aprameya means what? That which is not an object of perception any time, at any point in time, in any place. And I, my nature as Atma is what? I'm the aprameya Atma. I'm not at all an object of perception. Then how do I know that I'm there? If I'm not the object of perception, how do I know that I'm there? I'm self-revealing. I reveal myself all the time as I am, I am, I am. There's no need for somebody else to reveal me. If somebody asks, are you there? Should I confirm from somebody that I'm there? I'm self-revealing to myself that I'm there. Nothing needs to prove my presence. My presence itself is a proof that I am present. This is called as aprameyatvam of Atma. So I am ever an observer, never the observed. I am always that consciousness which observes or sees, and everything else is the prameya. Prameya means an object of my perception. Aprameya means that I, the Atma, which is always the subject consciousness and self-revealing. You remember in Lalita Sahasranama, we have Aprameya Swaprakasha. Lalita, those we all chant regularly. Aprameya Swaprakasha. What is the meaning? Lalita Devi, consciousness is aprameya, what is talking. And if it has to be aprameya and still prove its presence, it has to be what? Swaprakasha, self-revealing. Vishnu Sahasranama, what does he say? Aprameyo Rishikeshaha. I have told you the meaning of Rishikesha. Rishika means sense organs. Isha means the master. Rishikanam Ishaha, consciousness. Okay, that is that. Aprameya Rishikesha. That means self-revealing master of all the sense organs which reveal the entire universe. Therefore, who are you? You are a Prameya Atma. I know at every step it is something which is so mind-boggling that I cannot even accept this, possibility also. But, as I go on with Vedantic studies, as I pursue Vedanta, I understand that yes, I am this. And to change the way I look at myself, it takes me some time. I have to be patient with it. Therefore, Anashinaha, that imperishable Atma, is not an object of perception anytime. So, hey Arjuna, Atma, you and all of us are, our true nature is, we are the very subject consciousness always. Never are we the objects of this prameya or objects. I am not. You are not a prameya. You are always a prameya. Therefore, tasmad yudhyasva bharata. Now, yudhyasva means Krishna is not simply, trying to tell Arjuna to fight. He's just telling him, reminding him of his duty, what he has to do. Arjuna has come here to fight this war. So what he's saying is, understand Arjuna, all those people whom you think you are going to, ultimately, destroy and hurt, they are ultimately prameyas. They are the body. They are basically antavantas. They are going to come and go. And neither you nor they are these bodies. In the next few verses, he is going to tell Arjuna, you are not even the killer and they are not even the killed. You are not the one who is killing them. They are not the ones who are getting killed by anybody. There is no killer. There is no killed. There is nobody who gets killed. All this is at the level of Anatma. Understand, Arjuna, that you are that Atma and so are the rest of us here. Therefore, do your duty, do what you were supposed to do, what you have come here for. Tasma Yudhyasva Bharata. Now, in the next verse, the same thing as I told you, he says that Arjuna, you are not only an aprameya, but as Atma, you are a karta also. This is a very, very difficult thing to understand, and it is what Krishna says is Atma does not do anything. Atma is not a doer. Why does he say that? Now, when one wants to do something for any action, what is required? What is required is that one must have an object with which something can be done. A karma or an action can be done. Any action requires movement, doesn't it? Any action requires change. No action can be done without movement. No action can be done without change. Now, where is the movement happening? In the body, mind, sense complex Anatma. Where is the change happening? In the body, mind, sense complex Anatma. Where is the object in which the change is happening? It is in the Anatma, body, mind, sense complex. Therefore, Atma, which is the subtlest, which is not an object of perception. Atma, which is all pervading, which is everywhere. Is there any movement possible in this Atma? No. Is there any change possible in this Atma? No. Then how can Atma be a doer? For any action to happen, there should be a movement and there should be a change. When I'm speaking, a movement is happening of so many parts of my body. And with that movement, a change is happening. For every sound to come out, there should be a change in the nada. Every movement of my hand is a change from one place to the other. Therefore, for anything to act, for any action to take place, change and movement are very necessary. Whereas Atma is the subtlest of the subtle, which is all pervading, which is not an object of perception, that which is purely consciousness, Swarupam Atma. There is no change whatever possible in it. There is no movement possible in it. Then what is this Atma? It is not the Karta. It is not the doer. At the same time, what is it? It is an observer of all the action that is happening in the Anatma. Your body, mind, sense complex is the doer, where the movement is taking place, where the change is taking place. But you, the observer, consciousness or Atma, is only an observer of this change and an observer of this movement happening in the Anatma, body, mind, sense complex. Therefore, Arjuna, may you understand that no action of killing nor any action of getting killed is happening in Atma. Why is Krishna bringing in this killing here? You know, many people say, why should Krishna could have given any other example for action. Why is he giving the action of being killed and killing and all that? Is it not very gross or violent? No, no. The context is here that of war. And Arjuna's problem and Arjuna's samsara, Arjuna's shoka is that he's going to destroy, he's going to kill all these people. That is Arjuna's problem. And Arjuna thinks that it is his action that is going to kill them. And what Bhagavan wants to say to Arjuna is, hey Arjuna, you as Atma Swarupa are not the doer at all. And he says, anybody who thinks that he's a doer, or anybody who thinks that he is a killer, and anybody else who thinks that he's killed, both of them do not know that they are Atma Swarupas. It's only at the level of the body, mind, sense complex this is being talked about. Now, many people, without understanding this verse properly, it can lead to some confusion. Like a person may create, do some wrong actions and say, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says you are not the doer. Anyway, I'm the Atma, I'm not the doer. So why should I'm not responsible for it. No, that's not, it should not be understood at that level. It should be understood in a proper way, in such a way that Atma itself by itself cannot do anything because of impossibility of movement or change in it. But Atma is the one which gives existence, which is the observer of all the changes and actions that are happening in the body, mind, sense complex. So what kills is the body, mind, sense complex. What gets killed is another body. Atma is not involved here at all. That's what he wants to say here. There is a story where it seems, a murderer was caught, and in the judge sentenced him to life imprisonment. Said that you have done this culpable homicide or whatever. You have to be, it's a lifelong, lifetime imprisonment for you. So he said, no, Your Honor, I am a student of Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna says that no kartaram, you are not the killer, you are not. So I am only the Atma Swarupa, I am not the killer at all. How can you punish me for this or pass this sentence? And the judge said, so I'm also not the one who is this thing, I'm also not the Atma who is passing this sentence. It's my body, mind, sense complex which is passing this sentence, so you have to go. So it cannot be mistaken like this, or it cannot be ill quoted or wrongly quoted in wrong places to justify one's action. That's not the thing here. What he says here is, the nature of Atma is such that there is no possibility of any action by Atma or in Atma. And in the next verse, in the 19th verse, he says, Yayenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhau tau na vijanitaha nayam hanti na hanyate. So he says here, the one who thinks that I, the Atma, is a killer, or a person who thinks yaschainam manyate hatam, a person who thinks that I am killed, the Atma is killed, both of them do not know. Ubhau tau na vijanitaha na ayam hanti na hanyate. Na ayam Atma hanti na hanyate. So where is the action happening? It is happening at the body, mind, sense complex Anatma. And why is the anatma doing this particular action? There are so many reasons for that. Because of karma, because of Bhagavad Sankalpa, because of the law of karma, a particular body, mind, sense complex has to be involved in a certain action, and Atma is in no way associated with this action. Therefore, Atma is akarta. So a non-doer. So that is a, so see, I mean, it gives me so much of peace, and I will also not blame somebody else when something happens to me through another person. When somebody hurts me or when somebody, injures me, I'll, I will not take it as, that as he, the Atma Swarupa, has done anything. I understand that. I also absolve myself in the sense understandingly, not simply like that. I understand that, yes, it is the body, mind, sense complex of one individual which has hurt the body, mind, sense complex of another individual because of some kind of a transaction that had to go on, because of some law of karma where these two individual body, mind, sense complexes had to hurt each other, go through this action. But I, this Atma, which is the same Atma in him, this subtle aprameya, nitya, sukshmatara Atma, is incapable of any action, any movement, any kind of a change. Therefore, Atma, I cannot be the karta. Karta or karayita also. Karta means there are two things. I can do and I can get things done by others. I can kill somebody, I can get somebody killed by somebody else. So karta karayita. We have one song, Tutsa karata ani karayita. Karayita. Karayita means one who gets the job done through somebody else. So this Atma is neither the karta nor the karayita. Then there is a corollary in this. If Atma is not the karta, if karma is not happening in Atma, then it is not the bhokta also. See, when a karma happens, when an action happens, reaction is natural, correct? Action and reaction. When there is an action, there has to be a reaction. Therefore, the karma or the action comes back in the form of karma phala. Now, for whom is this karma phala? Is it for the Atma or for this body, mind, sense complex, Jiva? For whom is it? It is now said that this karma, since it is not the Atma's action, so the karma phala also does not accrue to the Atma. Then whoever is the doer, to that doer only the karma phala accrues. Now what is this doer? What is this jiva? Is only a body, mind, sense complex alone is the doer, or is there something else? What is the meaning of the jiva? That will come in the future, in further verses. Now at present what Krishna is trying to say is, you are neither the karta nor the karayita, nor are you the bhokta. You are that pure Atma Swarupa, which is aprameya and which is incapable of any action. And therefore, Arjuna, may you do your duty. And according to your prarabdha, according to their prarabdha, according to your law of karma and their law of karma, whatever has to happen through your body, mind, sense complex towards them, or what has to happen from their body, mind, sense complexes to yours, will take place. No Atma involvement is here at all. Therefore, you as Atma is akarta. They as Atma Swarupas are not bhoktas, they are abhoktas. So Atma Swarupataya, as Atma, I am akarta, abhokta. It will take me time to kind of, accept this. But this is, we have to start somewhere. And in the next verse, Krishna wants to give a Vedanta pramana for this. Krishna does not want to simply say things and say that, okay, I'm saying this, so it must. No. Krishna wants to give here a valid proof of what he's saying. And he gives Vedanta pramana from Kathopanishad. You see, in Bhagavad Gita, there are a lot of verses which are bodily lifted from Kathopanishad. And Krishna is now telling Arjuna that, look, I'm telling this because I'm giving you a Shastra Pramana, a Vedanta Pramana, which says that this particular Atma is something, whatever we have seen all this time from the 12th verse onwards, Krishna wants to give a Pramana from Kathopanishad. And here the Chandas changes. All this time we saw all these verses in Anushtup Chandas. And in Bhagavad Gita, whenever something important has to be told, when there is some little change in what has to be told, to alert the listener, to alert the attention of the listener, Bhagavad Gita shifts to another chandas or meter. And this verse is going to be in, whatever is called as the Trishtup Chandas. We'll just read this verse and then it will take a little time to be, to explain that verse, that we will take up next time. But न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. In brief, what Kathopanishad mantra says here is na jayate mriyate va vipaschite, it is said in Kathopanishad. Here Krishna says na jayate mriyate va kadachit. So what he's saying is the same features of Swarupa Lakshanas of Atma which we saw in the last 7 verses are repeated here in the form of a Vedanta Kathopanishad mantra. And what is this? Na jayate na mriyate va kadachit. That means this Atma is something which is never born, ajaha. That means what? That which is all the time there, that which is nitya, is never born. So nityatvam of Atma, what we saw in the 12th verse, Atma nityam. So this nityatvam na jayate. Anything which is all the time there, that which is eternal, is not born. Why? Anything that is born has to die. Antavanta ime dehaha, we saw that in the 18th verse. So here, na jayate means this Atma is of Nitya Swarupa. Na mriyate, if something is not born, it will not die also. And it is not susceptible to death also. It is not susceptible to any destruction. We saw that, avinashi tu tadvidhi. So nityatvam of Atma, avinashitvam of Atma, kadachit, always, never ever is there any birth for this Atma or destruction for this Atma. So, hey Arjuna, you are that eternal, indestructible, aprameya, self-revealing Swaprakasha, akarta, abhokta, Atma. And Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vana Bhuyaha, we'll take it next time. But here in the first line itself, Krishna just reiterates. He repeats what was told in the 12th verse and in also the 17th verse. So with this, we will stop today. And I'm going a little slow here because Atma Swarupam is something which is a very different way of looking at things. And Shastra is making me to look at myself from a very different point of view. And it has to be, assimilated slowly. It has to be understood slowly in very, very small volumes. So I'm going quite slow here. Okay, I think we'll complete with this. Om Nandantu Sadhaka Sarve Vinashyantu Vidushakaha Avastha Shambhavi Mestu Prasannostu Guru Sada Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkham Apnuyat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.